Hello, students. This is part two of the World War II study guide. And I'm going to finish going over this so you can listen and record if you need to. All right, I left off with question number 15. I'm going to start 16 and go through the rest of the packet. It says, what country was Winston Churchill the leader during World War II? And that was Great Britain. Yeah, Great Britain. The number one ally of the United States during the war. And the Lend-Lease bill benefited Great Britain the most during the early part of the war. And Winston Churchill was known for the victory sign. And he was skeptical about Adolf Hitler at the beginning. Didn't like the policy of appeasement. That's something you'll learn more about later on in high school U.S. history. 17, it says, circle the event that happened first. You have Normandy invasion, Battle of Midway, the Versailles Treaty, and the invasion of Poland. So the first event is the Versailles Treaty, and that was a treaty that was officially signed in 1919, which is after World War II. It was a peace plan after World War II that penalized Germany. It demilitarized Germany. It took away a lot of colonies and a lot of territories that Germany had occupied, and it put a lot of restrictions on Germany. And it gave blame to Germany. And it blamed Germany for the war, and that led to World War II. 18. What battle in the Pacific was a turning point of the U.S. Navy against the Japanese? So battle in the Pacific, turning point of the U.S. Navy against Japan. That was the Battle of Midway. Battle of Midway. And that was like a 4-day battle where we sunk 3 aircraft carriers. Number 19, what event forced Germany to surrender? What event forced Japan to surrender and ended World War II in 1945? And that was the atomic bombing of Japan. The atomic bombing of Japan. Nagasaki and Hiroshima. 75,000 people and 100,000 people, respectively, in those important cities. Little man and, a fat man and little boy were names of the 2 atomic bombs. 20, who replaced men in the workforce during World War II? And there were women. So 19 million women joined the workforce during the war. And a fictional character that persuaded and encouraged women to support the war effort was called Rosie the Riveter. You heard me talk about that before. 19 million women worked in the workforce. 21, what event on June 6, 1944 led to the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi control? And that was called the Normandy invasion, also known as D-Day. And that happened on the coastline of France. The Supreme Allied commander of that battle was the Dwight D. Eisenhower, who later became President of the United States. 22, what was the term for the racist belief that individuals with blonde hair and blue eyes were superior and should dominate other groups? And that belief was called Aryan supremacy. Aryan supremacy. 23, if someone is anti-Semitic, that means they're racist and prejudiced towards what group of people? Jews. Jewish people. And Jews had to wear the Star of David on their clothing in order to go out in public. They were ordered to do that. So their rights were restricted under anti-Semitic laws set forth by Germany, particularly the Nuremberg laws. People were restricted. German people were forbidden to buy from Jewish businesses. and enterprises. There were examples of segregation. A lot of different tactics used to practice anti-Semitism, and people still believe in that concept today. 24, what did the German government force Jewish people to wear on their clothing? And I already talked about it in number 23. And that's the Star of David. It's the Star of David. Other minority groups and other people who were considered inferior or a threat to the German society, the German people in general, they had a certain badge that they had to wear on their clothing as well. And we talked about the fact that Jewish people weren't the only people who were persecuted and killed in the Holocaust. 25, what was the name of the German Jewish girl who left behind a diary so that people could learn about how Jews were treated during the Holocaust? That was Anne Frank. We learned about how her and her family, under the direction of her father, Otto Frank, migrated to the Netherlands to escape the persecution in Germany. But in the 1940s, the German army invaded the Netherlands. And they hid there for 2 years, and they were snuffed out by in the sense of betrayal. We don't know who did that, but her diary left behind some important details and stories about her experience living in that hidden place near her father's business during the Holocaust. And she died in a concentration camp along with her sister and her mother. She died of a disease called typhus, which is a bacterial infection. A lot of people during the Holocaust died of infection and starvation, even before chance of being murdered. Awful case of being murdered. It was a miserable experience for those people. It's good for us to remember those people who persecuted and experienced so much hardship and pain and hatred. This is a map exercise. We did this as a starter in class, and I'm just going to run through it again. That says write the country for each place that is numbered. So you have a map of Europe. This is not Asia, so you don't see the country of Japan. All right, number 1 is Germany. Number 2 is Italy. Number 3 is the Soviet Union. Number 4 is Great Britain. And number 5 is France. Another activity dealing with the map of Europe during World War II, the description says, write the number of the country based on each description and role during World War II. First one says the site of the first Allied victory in air raid bombings by German planes. I'm going to draw an arrow to that, and that's right here, number 4. And this was the Battle of Britain. Which is in the city of London. Next one says this was the site of the beginning of the liberation of Europe on June 6, 1944. It was also called the D-Day invasion. And that is right here. Number 5, on the coastline of France. Okay. Next one says this country has the letter S label, which was a place of a siege that was a turning point of the war in Eastern Europe. And that's right here, which is the Soviet Union at Stalingrad. It's called Volgograd now. It's called Volgograd now. Next one said, last one says, this country was, no, there's a typo here, I'm scratching out a word. This country was ruled by the fascist dictator Benito Mussolini, and that's right here, number 2, and that's Italy. And Mussolini was executed, actually he was assassinated at the end of the war and hung him upside down in the Milan Square in Rome. So these dictators they didn't survive after the war. This right here is the third exercise of this map review of Europe during World War II. and it asks you to number your paper from 1 to 4. For each place that is numbered, identify the country and leader. So all you're doing is that you're matching the picture of the leader to the country. Your countries I've given you are Germany, Italy, Soviet Union, Japan, Great Britain. The leaders are Mussolini, Hitler, Tojo, Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt. So the best thing to do is to first identify the leaders. Right here we know that this is Adolf Hitler. This person right here is Joseph Stalin. This individual right here is Churchill. And this individual right here is Mussolini. This individual in the far right-hand corner is Hideki Tojo, who was the Prime Minister of Japan. So he was the supreme military leader of the country of Japan, but Japan had an emperor named Hirohito who gave a lot of power to Tojo in carrying out the military affairs of the Japanese Empire. So now you have to match up the leader's picture with their country. Hitler, of course, is right here, number 1, which is Germany. Stalin, right here, is the leader of this country right here, which is the Soviet Union. I'm going to abbreviate Soviet Union. Churchill, right here, good old Great Britain, our number 1 ally. And Mussolini, the fascist leader of Italy, Italia. And Tojo, he's not, he doesn't have the map of a country located on this page because he was the leader of Japan. So he was the leader of Japan. And Japan's out in Asia, and Asia is not, Asia's not, it's not Europe. So there you go. I've completed part 2 of your study guide. Hope you study and pay attention and do a good job on the test. Peace.